Welcome back. It's Machiavelli, and here are my picks for UFC 313. King Green versus Mauricio Rufy. Okay, so this one is pretty interesting to call because Bobby Green lately in his career, he's been a little bit inconsistent, shall we say. He's coming off a loss to Paddy Pimblett, but his fight before that against Jim Miller at UFC 300 was actually pretty good because at that time Jim Miller was coming off a win streak and he was looking pretty good himself, and more or less Bobby just kind of shut him down. That said, Rufy is, the young up and coming guy. His team, the Fighting Nerds, they have momentum right now. All those guys are winning. So Rufy's going to come in confident, with the tall striking stance, trying to emulate Conor or whatnot. And of course, he's just younger, more explosive and athletic. I think this would be fairly easy to call for Rufy to get this done, either by a decision or maybe somewhat of a late finish, second or third round, because we can never doubt Bobby Green. He is a dog. He will say yes to any opponent he gets, and he will show up to fight, win, lose, or draw. That said, though, I believe this will just be a tale as old as time. The young up-and-coming fighter facing the old veteran. So I think while Bobby might look a little bit faster and crisp early on, unless Rufy catches him quick, clean, and early, I think this fight will be a bit competitive for a few moments. Bobby will look good here and there. He'll land a strike or two, kind of get the crowd on his side, because he's a showman. Everyone loves Bobby Green. But yeah, I think Rufy will just get this done. He'll weather the storm, and his athleticism will carry it to a win. Amanda Lemos versus Yasmin Lucindo. Okay, so I'm not really sure how much people really care about this fight or will be paying attention, but mirroring the last one, I am picking Lucindo to win, either by decision, just a dominant decision. I don't know if she's capable of finishing Amanda Lemos because you never know. People forget, man. In this division, it's not really stacked or worthy of notable names, right? But if you really take a look at Amanda Lemos' career and the wins she has, it's actually not too bad. But of course, this is one of those fights where, the cards are sort of stacked against her. Lemos already fought the champion Wei Li and quite frankly got dominated and embarrassed in every aspect. But apart from that, she actually has some pretty decent wins and can make this fight competitive. I can honestly see her winning. But, she's older. She's already had her shot, right? So, everyone's going to pick Lucindo to win. The UFC's betting on her to win because she's younger, right? More marketable. They want to tap into that. Just everything that we mentioned earlier with Mauricio Rufy. So again, I think Lucindo will get this done by a somewhat dominant and maybe competitive, but clear decision. Just nothing to really see here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Amanda Lemos steps in as a crafty vet and big sisters this girl. But we'll see. Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. Ah, yes. The two weight bullies fighting in a division they don't belong in, but here we are. The odds makers have this as a very close and competitive fight because they quite literally have the same, dimensions. But, I'm going to pick Bahamondes to win this. If you look at Jalen Turner's recent record, he's sort of been inconsistent. The last time we saw him was almost a year ago, UFC 300. He, fumbled the bag against Renato Moicano. Before that, he was coming off a pretty vicious knockout over Bobby Green. But even before that, he was coming off a very, very close loss to Dan Hooker, in which, my opinion, I honestly believe Jalen should have won. So, in a way, you might be able to infer that Jalen Turner has his back against the wall. He needs to come in and make a statement. He needs to make a big win, make it look easy and dominant. But I think there's too much at stake here for him to get this done. Because Bahamondes, he and his team right now, they are coming off a few wins. They have 2 world champions in the gym. They're active and in training. So he's riding off high of their confidence. So he's going to come in, looking big, tall, and proud. And I think he's going to pretty much style on Jalen Turner. I think he is going to outstrike him. He's going to make it look clean. He's going to catch him when Jalen tries to rush in, and he'll just be the superior striker. Do I think this fight will lead to a finish? That's actually a tough one to call, because yeah, they both have power to put people away, but given that they're both lanky, weight bullies in this division who mirror each other almost perfectly, I think they're going to try and play it safe, try and pitter-patter to see who will outpoint the other. But again, I think Jalen is going to get maybe a little frustrated, because he's going to be on the yet another end of a close competitive decision loss. So maybe he'll try and force something to happen. He'll try and get a highlight reel, but he'll just be caught by Ignacio. He'll look a little bit foolish on the feet. But credit to both of them. They know how to survive their fights. They aren't really known to be finished. So I think this fight will hit the distance. I think we will reach the scorecards to, again, it will probably be a split decision loss for Jalen Turner. Ignacio Bahamondes will win. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. Okay. I was so ready to come in here, with a big grin on my face and tell you all the ways in which Dan Hooker was going to win this fight with Gaethje. I was going to sit here and rant for a few minutes on how, even though I thought Dan Hooker lost his fight with Turner, his new recent midlife crisis phase, Dookie Dan, with all the tattoos and such, I thought he was going to absolutely piece up Gaethje and knock that fool out cold. But we all know what happened. Dan Hooker broke his hand. He had to pull out of the fight. So be it. Rafael Fiziev steps in about a week's notice in a rematch that these two had a few years ago in London, in which Justin Gaethje won. It was a close fight, their first match, and a little bit of copium in me said that Rafael won. But looking back at it now, it was a competitive fight, and it was somewhat close, but Gaethje easily won it if you break it down strike by strike. And I think this will go the exact same way, because if you look at it, yes, Justin Gaethje did get knocked out brutally in his last fight at UFC 300. Fiziev is coming off a very long layoff in which he was injured, right? I believe he blew out his knee or meniscus or something, and pretty much he's been inactive this entire time, just, recovering. And with the recovery time, we don't really know what he's been doing in the gym. Yeah, of course, the fact that he said yes to this fight, he's been looking to make a comeback, of course. I believe he's going to show up in weight, he's going to be trained, but he hasn't really been active. Neither is Gaethje, of course, but Gaethje has been more active in comparison. However, the current circumstances, as it seems, this is an uphill battle for Fiziev. There's not really ways I can see him winning. Maybe Justin Gaethje's chin has completely cracked and deteriorated. Maybe this time off he had isn't good for him, because Rafael, yeah, he had the time off, but again, he's recovering. So I'd like to think, and he's younger too, so I'd like to think that he's been taking his care seriously. We know Justin Gaethje doesn't have that many fights left in him. He said plenty of times that he's thinking about hanging it up, right? One last run, that type of deal. So he's already looking for ways out of this fight. And as much as it really pains me to say, I'm going to begrudgingly pick Justin Gaethje to win this by a pretty dominant, decisive decision. Or perhaps maybe Fiziev hasn't recovered as well as we may have thought, so Justin might be able to get him out of there. But either way, I think Justin will win this, even though I will root for Rafael Fiziev to knock this fool out. Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Alright, so here we are, the main event. This fight has been, on the tip of everyone's tongue for quite a while. Yeah, if you paid attention to the storyline, you might know. Some people might say Pereira's been ducking Magomed. Others will disagree. With the date of this fight happening, it's already in the midst of Ramadan, right? So people are saying that Pereira specifically chose this date to, get any advantage that he can, because Magomed would be depleting himself, not really getting the proper nutrition. And either way, I think right now, this moment, regardless of those circumstances, is probably like one of the better moments for Alex to win. I think Alex Pereira will get this done. I think this can go to a decision, but I'm going to say he will knock out Magomed Ankalaev. If you take a quick look at the resumes of both men, you can see that Pereira, he has faced champion after champion after champion after champion, winning maybe a loss here or there, but all this guy knows how to do is fight champions. Meanwhile, if you look at Magomed's, the only world champion that he has ever fought in his career, he couldn't even win against. And if you watch that fight with Jan Blachowicz, you can see that Jan was kicking his legs out, kicking his knees, making him buckle all around the octagon, and just making Magomed look silly. And if Jan Blachowicz, the guy who gave Pereira one of his harder fights in this division, is able to do that to him, imagine what Alex will do when he takes full advantage of that weakness, knowing full well that he can, kick this guy's legs out. But then that leads me to, the obvious narrative that a lot of people seem to not want to talk about, the wrestling. I think Magomed Ankalaev will resort to his wrestling. Yes, he is a known striker, and if you watch his career, he honestly doesn't shoot that many takedowns and doesn't really utilize his top grappling positions effectively, or at least he doesn't do so in a dominant manner as, say, Hamza Habib, that sort of thing. But that said, there's been so much talk leading up to this fight. Magomed saying that he's only going to stand up and trade with him. But I think that's just a bluff. I think, I think that maybe the first round or so, he's going to at least attempt it because he's confident in his own right. He has his own power in his hands, and he could definitely crack and put away Pereira if he lands clean. That said, Pereira is just too defensively sound and slick to avoid these shots. And he's going to land his own, right? Making Magomed uncomfortable, stinging him, forcing him to resort to the wrestling. But that said, Alex Pereira knows this fully. He's been training with Glover Teixeira for several years now. He's been working on his grappling for several years now. So while if Magomed does take him down, I think Pereira, he'll probably be held down for a few minutes of control time, but he's gonna know how to survive the submissions. If the moment he gets taken down, it's either he's gonna hold position to force a stand up, or he might immediately scramble and sweep, but keeping himself defensively sound to not get a limb or his neck taken. This fight I'm really looking forward to. for several reasons, right? People say this is the one that should have been, right? This is the real number one contender, and I don't really know. It's just, I think now is still Pereira's time. He's been winning. He's been making these highlights, coming in as a champion. So maybe there's a chance that he's kind of doubting him. He's going to come in like looking, oh, I'm too good for this guy. I'm just going to make it look easy. And then he gets caught. But that said, like if that were to happen, that's what Khalil Roundtree already did. Khalil Roundtree made it a very competitive fight with Pereira. And so in a sense, I think it sort of humbled him in the sense like, oh, I shouldn't treat any of these guys as some sort of cannon fodder. So Alex Pereira will come into this fight hard trained. He's going to be ready, and he's going to win this fight by any means necessary.
All right, so in conclusion, these will be my picks for UFC 313. Overall, I am fairly confident in my choices, but it would be quite crazy to see if Magomed were to become champion. Obviously, it's unspoken, but the UFC probably don't want him to win. He's not that marketable. You know, Alex is the guy, the superstar, but yeah, those will be my picks. This card overall is pretty good, actually. There are some decent fights on the prelims I'll be paying attention to. And while it's unfortunate that Dookie Dan pulled out of this fight, I was really looking forward to him, you know, just washing Gaethje. It is what it is. Just another card. You know, he'll be back. He'll look good, but in any case, I suppose that is it for me. I want to thank everyone for listening up to this point. Let me know what you think, if I'm wrong, if I'm right. All engagement's appreciated. I appreciate every single one of you. Enjoy the fights and take care.